Hello, everybody. Uh, Thank you. I'm grateful to be here. And I think we can start with I love starting with looking around at the people around you and just taking a moment to take them in. Somehow, for some reason, we're all here. And not just in this moment and in this place, whether online or in the temple, but alive. And I don't know how often we just pause to just acknowledge the gift of that, the beauty of that. And who knows why we are here, and here we are. I'm gonna start today. So, Lev and or Fresh, and not Robert's fault, but I've changed my name, so it's confusing. But you can call me Lev or Fresh. And yeah, I am in Oakland, and I've been teaching for a little while, or humbly offering my perspective on what I've taken in from the Dharma, which I believe is, you know, our everyday life and experience all the time, in addition to the Buddhist teachings. And my focus is, as many of you know who have been here before, is on self compassion. And I want to thank the people who came to meet with me to help me warm up because I think I slept like 2 or 3 hours. And, um, and so I pulled together a talk for you about, half hour before I came, which I'm going to trust is going to be okay. And I think the way that I want to begin, and so when I say like I think, that's a sign that I'm sleepy. Uh, the way I wanted to begin was imagining for yourself your sole purpose of why we're here. And so that also came in our meeting. But I was thinking about, why do you think that you're here in this life? Why do you think we're here? And I actually would love to hear just people throw out whatever comes up. Don't think too deeply on it. And you don't have to know the answer. Just like in a somewhat playful way. What are the reasonings for being here in this life?
I don't know.
Eating things,
Creative compassion.
Learning from mistakes, growing,
making babies.
lots of them.
Eating.
Anything else?
Eating.
Mm,
Appreciation.
mm.
Finding joy,
Yeah, so I mean, in my mind, like we're all right because none of us know actually. And a few years ago, I asked this question, that suppose our sole purpose was to learn how to love ourselves unconditionally. Suppose that's the only reason we're here. And just considering where we each are with that right now, where we've, yeah, not where we've been, but where we are. And then maybe think about even, those in the world. What's possible if we all loved ourselves unconditionally? And then suppose our purpose was to practice self compassion as we go along throughout our day. So, not just for the big things, but for the little things. Things that might cause harm to us or others, but we usually ignore and push it away instead of having some compassion for whatever it was that we may have done or said. And thinking about, in the bigger frame, what's possible for the world if we loved ourselves unconditionally, and we just beginning with us. Of course, if it was a bigger world, who knows? But thinking about what's possible in your world. And that leads to the question of what might we ask, one might ask consciously, who am I below the reactions and responses to the conditions? Who am I below all of the reactions that we have that come up? Am I loving? Am I love? One of my pronouns is love. I think it shows up there. We can talk about that later. Can I connect with the essential love, our essential Buddha nature? What happens if I simply allow for that? And we have consciously and unconsciously taken on inherited narratives that are not true. They're certainly not true about us. And then we've taken in the narrative of the system that is always in lack and scarcity. The system that always says that we need more in order to be more. And please consider for a moment that you are part of all that is, and that you inherently, right? We're inherently this Buddha nature. We're inherently part of this, what some may call source, universe, creator. All of the other terms that you might use when we're thinking about ourselves and consider ourselves from that place, what's possible? And just breathing in with that for a moment, breathing in the acceptance that you are everything and everything is you, that you are part of this whole system. From this place, as we consider offering our intentions in this life, we might ask ourselves these 3 questions inspired by a Buddhist teacher and spiritual minister, Michael Beckwith. And who are we before the stories? Who are we before the stories, whether they were created by us or created by the world? And who are we, or who am I, before the inherited narratives, which is still the stories that came from the people before us, the people around us? And then this bigger question maybe is, who am I before the psychic woundedness? The psychic woundedness. And that can come in an example, these ways that these ideas of what we feel is right and just and then being denied, or times when we our instincts, where we deny our own instincts for one reason or another, where we're taking in other people's energies and responding to them versus responding to what's inside. And we may ask these questions with the understanding that they are conditioned experiences that separate us from our own divine selves, from our own Buddha nature. They separate us from that which we might call the goddess, the God, Buddha, source, nature, universe, all that I've named. So I'll ask them one more time, and we'll experience, and I'll be silent for a moment, just asking for yourself, and you can close your eyes if you'd like. Who am I before the stories? And who am I before the inherited narratives? Who am I before psychic wounding? When we can go a little bit deeper to really investigate who we are in our practice or even in our daily lives, I'm often asking people to consider why they believe what they believe. Because we don't always know. We believe things that are not true. I appreciated Robert talking about your practice of anti-racism, but racism comes from a belief. And unless we question what we believe, we will continue to believe X, Y, and Z are true. And then there's something about when we're unconscious with what we believe, we become under a spell. It's almost like it's sort of like we no longer question, right? We have this belief and we live under the spell, and our mindfulness practice helps us to see what the beliefs are, encourages us to deepen our understanding and find someplace, and I'm using sort of over my body, but we can sort of like, is this true? Does this reflect what Buddha nature teaches me? How is my Buddha nature responding? And imagine going through our lives with this experience, not in some kind of overwhelming, breaking everything down way, but I'm imagining like being in this life and just noticing, how am I feeling now? What's going on for me right now? And not just sitting, right? So we pause, we take a breath, and sometimes the breath is not possible. I don't know, maybe a decade ago, I started asking myself, how are you? And I was surprised when I started lying. I would be like, oh, I feel good, I feel happy. And then after a while, I would say, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, to myself. And then I'd be like, ooh, that's not true. And having to like sort of recalibrate the delusion of wanting to not know. Often we don't want to know because it's not honored, or it may not have been honored at some point in our experience. Don't ask, let's see if this is, oh yeah, here's a quote. It says, and you've heard it, don't ask what the world needs. What the world needs are people who are alive. And I'm going to add vibrant, and that was Howard Thurman. I know it's been said different ways by different people. I'm going to add vibrant, resilient, and real. And going back to this quote, don't ask what the world needs. What the world needs are people who are alive. Ask what makes you come alive. And then go do that. And I know there's a subtle shift in what I'm talking about, but there's so much aliveness in being aware of who we are, how we're feeling, in touch with ourselves so that we know why we're reacting from where we're reacting. So I deeply believe that we are love, whatever that might mean for you in the deepest sense, but that our true nature is to be kind and loving to each other. And the rest, as many of you know, are the conditions that sort of keep us from ourselves. We need to be reminded, you can be reminded that you are amazing just as you are. That showing up for yourself and bringing yourself here today is a practice of self-kindness, self-love. And everything you did or offered to do before you came to this place, if we can stay from this place in your life, if we can avoid judging and accepting, then we have more capacity for love, more capacity to express. And this idea, where I'm going to a little bit, is this idea of creating the world that we live in. I love that somebody recently said that they were looking forward to the November elections. I haven't heard that before. And I'm thinking, and it made me feel like, oh, because this person's like actively visioning what they want. They're actually being in this place of what they want, less focus on everything that could go wrong. And physicist and philosopher Dr. Werner Heisenberg is considered a pivotal personality in the evolution of modern physics, primarily known for his groundbreaking contributions to quantum mechanics. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle serves as a reminder that our interactions with the world can significantly influence outcomes. Whether in scientific research or everyday life, understanding that this principle can help us navigate the complexities of measurement and observation. Using Hawkins' principle, Dr. Stephen Hawkins offered that when we witness or observe something from loving kindness, we measurably raise its calibrated level of consciousness. If we had time, well, actually, I want to try this, just taking a moment for you to pause. We'll pause, I'll pause. And maybe put your hand on your heart. And imagine for a moment sending out loving kindness or care to all of the folks in this space. Just imagine you might do it with an exhale. And now as you're inhaling, imagine taking that in. Exhaling love and inhaling love. And you can do that, you can continue to do that. And one of the ways that I practice that every day is I'm one of those strange people that acknowledges as many people and talks to as many people, not talk as much, but acknowledges as many people as possible out in the world. And it's amazing how many people are happy for that connection. There are unfortunately a lot who are not. But it feels like every time I connect with someone lovingly, it can expand. Those of you who are older may remember the Clairol commercial. There was this commercial where it's sort of like, and you tell 10 people and you tell 10 people. So I'm imagining like this loving kindness practice just spreading out. Surely some of us have used a look, right, of loving kindness, or we've used a look of scowling, and we can know the experience of that. I'll borrow a story from a young 6'4" trans woman who would walk around San Francisco, and always well dressed, beautiful hair, and and she would say how hard it was for her that everybody was staring at her, how difficult it was. And she'd walk down the street and like she was just sort of like, in herself. And I know what's true is that sometimes it can be painful, hurtful. People are painful. But I asked her to spend a weekend imagining that everybody was seeing her as I was seeing her, which is, she really is this beautiful, stunning person. She's also an opera singer. She sang at some of the games around town in the Bay Area. And I asked her to imagine going out in the world or when she goes out in the world, to imagine everybody loving her and everybody being admiring and just thinking she's gorgeous. And it changed everything. That weekend, that Monday, she came back to work and felt really appreciated, right? So she was out creating her experience. Things are still going to happen. Working with homeless folks, many of them in San Francisco, these were ex-sex workers. They were aged out. And whatever that means. They were over 50. They were also dealing with homelessness, and they were just beyond the standards that they were living in prior. And they talked about their tough experiences. And so one weekend I asked them to go out and compliment everybody that they engaged with, the cashier, at the coffee shop, at Walgreens, at wherever they were going, if they saw somebody on the street. And they did so. And I said, don't expect people to, thank you, or don't just like give. And when they came back, it was totally different. Their experiences and their stories was sort of like about how kind everybody was and how they had a great day, versus the one person that came in and had a really bad day because at 8 a.m. somebody insulted them and it's now 5 a.m. and they're still feeling it. Creating her experience. Let's see if I have one more story that I want to share from this sleepy mind of mine. There's this one woman who was really tough. And when I say tough, I mean like she was a fighter. And didn't take any BS. And I'm sharing these stories knowing that most of you may not ever exchange conversations with these folks. And I just want to raise them up for a moment. And she said, so I was holding these circles at this organization, and I was practicing mindfulness with them. And this one woman was like, when somebody pisses me off, I just swing. Like, I can't do anything about it. Like, I don't, my mind goes blank, and I just swing. And I asked her if she wanted to be free from that, And of course, she looked at me like I was like crazy and strange. And I said, I'd like to invite you to just practice pausing. And of course, she came back the next week and she said, I actually used the term, you can take your power back by deciding what you want to do. And she came back the next week and said that her week was different. It was less violent, and she came and continued to practice. It was amazing how many of those folks who were homeless and disenfranchised in so many ways were eager to practice, and then thus taking on their experiences, because it went beyond the people on the street to the people who were serving them everywhere. None of us is free is a powerful phrase emphasizing the individual freedom, emphasizing that individual freedom is interconnected. If one person is oppressed, then true freedom cannot exist for anyone. This concept has been echoed since and before and beyond the civil rights movement, from one movement activist named Fannie Lou Hamer, who stated, nobody's free until everybody's free. And in order to be free, we really have to practice self-compassion. In order to be free, the practice of loving ourselves unconditionally, freeing us from the conditions and the systems that we're in to connect with our Buddha selves. We can't be free unless we're willing to let go of what's unhealthy, the unhealthy habits of ourselves and others. Talking to people in a more general sense, particularly we hear these ideas about boycotting this or that for those of us who are consumers, and reminding people that they only have to choose one thing versus I can't give everything up, and just starting from wherever you are. Whatever it is that I canceled Netflix. I no longer have an Amazon account, but I have bought things from Amazon. But I'm free from that yearly commitment, and I still get my things delivered free, but that's a different story. Finding ways that we can be free. Let's see, I want to say something else before I... All of us are here, and speaking for myself, because we want to be free. And we all have lots of different reasons and stories for struggling with it. And one of the ways that the struggle dissolves is just saying yes. It's no longer allowing the stories to decide. It's no longer allowing the instinct to decide. I'm sorry, not the instinct. The reaction to decide. I talked earlier about loving ourselves so that we can love each other. So maybe I'll talk just a second about that idea of practicing being who we want to be, practicing looking at what we want to see, practicing being the world that we want to live in. Be that person that's looking forward to the November election because they choose to believe that things will be different for a lot of us. That means practicing turning away without ignoring, but let me put it a different way. Practicing spending less time looking at what we don't want. We want to be aware, but we don't have to swim in it. I'm going to practice not having caffeine this week because I know I was up last night because I've been drinking it for too long, for too many days in a row. So I'll offer that may we choose to love ourselves. Suppose that's why you're here. Suppose you don't need a reason. Suppose you don't even need anything to forgive because it's happened. And while you may have to seek, or you may choose to seek forgiveness from others, suppose you just accept yourself as you are, with loving kindness, with compassion. Yeah. And I'll end with, may we all choose to be love and be free.